The wager Julian Blackwood adjusted his custom-tailored Armani suit as he surveyed the charity gala from the mezzanine. At 38, he'd built Blackwood Technologies from nothing into a billion-dollar empire, and he carried that success like armor. The Sterling Hotel ballroom glittered below him, San Francisco's elite mingling over champagne and performative philanthropy. Tonight was less about charity and more about connections, specifically, the potential acquisition of Winters. Innovation, a rising AI company with breakthrough technology his team coveted. "Mr. Blackwood, your table is ready." The event coordinator appeared at his elbow, eager to please. Julian nodded dismissively and descended the grand staircase, aware of the subtle shift in the room as people noticed his arrival. He'd grown accustomed to the effect his presence had, the whispers, the straightened postures, the calculated approaches. He spotted his executive team already seated at their designated table, champagne flutes in hand. Among them sat a woman he didn't recognize, brown hair gathered in a simple updo, wearing a modest navy dress rather than the designer gown surrounding her. She seemed engrossed in conversation with his CFO, Rebecca. Julian approached, interrupting, without hesitation. "I need the Winters innovation brief before tomorrow's meeting." The woman looked up, surprise flashing across her features before being replaced by something unreadable. Her eyes, a striking amber, assessed him with unexpected directness. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but I don't have access to your files," she replied, her voice carrying a quiet confidence that gave him pause. Rebecca intervened quickly. "Julian, this is Olivia. She's with the catering staff," Julian finished, impatiently. "Then perhaps you could fetch us another round while you're here." A charged silence fell over the table. Rebecca looked mortified, but the woman, Olivia, merely smiled, a subtle curve of her lips that suggested amusement rather than offense. "Of course," she said, rising gracefully. "Champagne for everyone?" Julian had already turned his attention to his phone, dismissing her with a nod. He missed the knowing glances exchanged across the table as she walked away. "Julian, that was completely inappropriate," Rebecca hissed. "Do you have any idea who that was?" "Someone who can bring us drinks, apparently," he replied, scrolling through emails. "That," Rebecca said, her voice tight with exasperation, "was Olivia Winters." Julian's fingers froze mid-scroll. He looked up slowly. "Winters? As in, the founder and CEO of Winters Innovation? The company you're meeting with tomorrow. The brilliant mind behind the AI integration system you've been obsessing over for months." Rebecca's disapproval was palpable. "And you just asked her to be our server?" The realization hit him like ice water. Julian rarely miscalculated so spectacularly. He scanned the room, locating Olivia at the bar, indeed speaking to a server, likely actually ordering their drinks. "Why didn't she correct me?" he demanded. His COO, Daniel, chuckled. "Maybe because watching you put your foot in your mouth tomorrow will be more entertaining." Julian wasn't accustomed to being the punchline. Before he could respond, Olivia returned, balancing a tray of champagne flutes with surprising dexterity. "Your drinks," she announced, distributing them with the efficiency of someone who had indeed worked service jobs before. When she reached Julian, their eyes met. "I added a splash of humility to yours, Mr. Blackwood. On the house." The table erupted in poorly concealed laughter. Julian felt heat creep up his neck, an unfamiliar sensation. He hadn't blushed since middle school. "Ms. Winters, I apologize for the misunderstanding," he said stiffly. "No misunderstanding at all," she replied, taking her seat. "I started my career waiting tables through college. It funded my first prototype." She raised her glass. "To knowing where we come from, Something about her calm confidence unsettled him. Most people either feared Julian or wanted something from him. Olivia Winters seemed to want nothing, least of all his approval. "I understand we're meeting tomorrow," he said, recalibrating his approach. "Indeed. Though I should warn you, I drive a hard bargain." Her eyes sparkled with challenge. "I wouldn't expect anything less." "Then I'll make you a wager, Mr. Blackwood." She leaned forward slightly. "If your offer tomorrow impresses me, I'll forget tonight ever happened. If not, she shrugged. Well, this story might make excellent material for my keynote at next month's tech summit. Julian found himself smiling despite himself. Deal. As the evening progressed, Julian observed Olivia from a new perspective. She moved through the crowd with quiet authority, genuine in conversations where others were merely networking. She remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and commanded respect without demanding it. For the first time in years, Julian Blackwood felt outmaneuvered and inexplicably intrigued by the woman who'd done it. Tomorrow's meeting had suddenly become about much more than business. Power play. The Winters Innovation Headquarters stood in stark contrast to Blackwood Technologies' gleaming glass tower. Housed in a renovated industrial building in Oakland, its brick exterior concealed cutting-edge technology within. Julian's driver pulled up to the entrance where moss-covered concrete planters and reclaimed wood signage reflected Olivia Winters' different approach to corporate identity. Wait here, Julian instructed his driver before straightening his tie one final time. Inside, the reception area hummed with productive energy. Young professionals in casual attire moved purposefully through an open workspace filled with plants and natural light. No ostentatious displays of success, yet the atmosphere crackled with innovation. Mr. Blackwood, a young man greeted him. Ms. Winters is ready for you in the conference room. May I get you anything before the meeting? Just directions, Julian replied, annoyed at feeling somehow underdressed in his $3,000 suit. The conference room was equally understated. Reclaimed wood table, ergonomic chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a community garden. Olivia stood with her back to him, reviewing something on a tablet. She wore tailored black pants and a simple white blouse, her hair now falling in loose waves around her shoulders. Good morning, Mr. Blackwood, she said without turning. Punctual, I appreciate that. Julian placed his briefcase on the table. I've been known to arrive on time when something interests me. She turned then, that same unreadable expression from last night playing across her features. And what interests you more, our AI integration system or the opportunity to save face after last night? Direct. No corporate dance. Julian found it refreshingly irritating. Both have their appeal, he admitted. But primarily I'm here because your technology solves problems my team has been wrestling with for months. Olivia gestured to a chair. Then let's talk technology first. Ego repair second. For the next hour, they delved into specifications and capabilities. Julian was impressed despite himself. Olivia didn't just understand her company's technology, she had built it, coded it, lived it. She answered his most challenging questions with precision, occasionally sketching diagrams that revealed elegant solutions to complex problems. Your offer, she said finally, setting down her pen. I'm curious what you think my company is worth. Julian slid a folder across the table. The numbers speak for themselves. It's generous. Olivia opened the folder, studied the documents inside, then closed it without comment. She stood and walked to the window. Do you know what I see when I look out there, Julian? The shift to his first name didn't escape him. A garden. It's a community project. Local schools, seniors from the assisted living facility down the block, our employees, they all contribute. When I founded this company, I promised it would remain rooted in community. She turned to face him. Your offer is financially sound, but it says nothing about preserving what we've built here. Julian frowned. Business is business. Sentimentality is precisely what makes our AI different, she interrupted. Our algorithms understand nuance because we've built them with humanity in mind. That's not sentimentality. It's our competitive advantage. Something shifted in Julian's perception. This wasn't the negotiation tactic he'd anticipated. She genuinely cared about more than the bottom line, yet had built a wildly successful company around those principles. What are you proposing? He asked. Partnership, not acquisition. Your distribution network and our innovation. Joint leadership on the project. She returned to the table, her amber eyes meeting his directly. And the Oakland facility remains as is. Julian leaned back, considering. It wasn't what he came for. Blackwood Technologies acquired. It didn't partner. Yet the prospect of working alongside this fascinating contradiction of a woman held unexpected appeal. My board will need convincing. Then convince them, Olivia replied simply. Unless you're not as persuasive as your reputation suggests. The challenge in her voice triggered something competitive in him. 2 weeks, he said. We'll develop a prototype partnership model. If it works, we move forward. If not, we revisit the acquisition. Olivia extended her hand. 2 weeks. Their handshake lingered a moment longer than necessary, the connection sending an unexpected current up Julian's arm. Over the following days, Julian found himself spending more time at the Oakland facility than his own office. He told himself it was to oversee the project personally, but he knew there was more to it. Watching Olivia lead her team was a revelation. She, inspired rather than intimidated, listened more than she spoke, and somehow extracted brilliance from everyone around her. You're staring again, Daniel commented during one of their progress meetings. I'm observing her management style, Julian replied stiffly. Is that what we're calling it now? Daniel smirked. Because from where I'm sitting it looks a lot like fascination. Julian dismissed the comment, but later that evening, as he and Olivia worked late finalizing prototype specifications, he couldn't deny his growing awareness of her. The scent of her subtle perfume when she leaned over his shoulder to review a document. The melodic quality of her laugh when one of her engineers made a terrible coding joke. The intensity in her eyes when she believed in an idea. We should probably call it a night, Olivia said, noticing the time. It's nearly midnight. Julian looked up from his laptop, suddenly aware they were alone in the office. I didn't realize it was so late. Time flies when you're revolutionizing machine learning. She smiled, stretching her arms above her head. The movement drew his attention to the elegant line of her neck, the curve of her silhouette against the dim office lighting. He cleared his throat. The prototype is exceeding expectations. That's because we're good together, she said, then quickly added, professionally speaking. The clarification lingered between them, acknowledging something neither was ready to name. I should get home, Julian said, gathering his things. Early meeting tomorrow. At the elevator, an awkward silence fell between them. When the doors opened, Julian hesitated. Olivia, he began, uncertain what he wanted to say. Yes? Their eyes met, and for a moment, the carefully constructed professional boundaries seemed paper-thin. Nothing, he said finally. Good night. As the elevator doors closed between them, Julian acknowledged a troubling truth. For the first time in his career, he was hoping a business deal would fail, because if the partnership worked, she would remain a colleague. And he was beginning to want something entirely different. Beyond boardrooms, the San Francisco sky unleashed a relentless downpour as Julian peered through the windshield of his Tesla. The partnership prototype was scheduled for its first major test today, and everything that could go wrong seemed determined to do so. His chief engineer had called in sick. The investor who'd been most skeptical about the partnership would be attending, and now the rain threatened to flood parts of Oakland, where the demonstration was set to take place. Julian dialed Olivia's number, his third call in the past hour. Please tell me you've got good news, Olivia answered, the strain evident in her voice. I'm on my way, but traffic is at a standstill on the Bay Bridge. Julian checked the time. The demonstration starts in 45 minutes. The prototype is ready, but we've got another problem. The storm knocked out power to half the building. We're running on backup generators, but they won't sustain the processing power we need for the full demonstration. Julian tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Can we postpone? Hamilton Rochester is flying back to New York tonight. If we don't impress him today, we lose our shot at his investment. Olivia paused. I might have a solution, but it's unorthodox. I'm listening. There's a private tech incubator in Berkeley with the infrastructure we need. The founder owes me a favor. We could relocate the demonstration, but do it, Julian interrupted. Text me the address. I'll meet you there. 90 minutes later, Julian arrived at a modernist building nestled among Berkeley's eucalyptus groves. Inside, Olivia had somehow transformed the space into a makeshift demonstration area. Her team worked feverishly, connecting equipment and testing systems. "You made it," Olivia said, relief washing over her face. She looked different today, more vulnerable, her usual composure frayed at the edges. A smudge of ink marked her cheek, and her hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Julian fought the urge to wipe the ink away. "Hamilton? Stuck at his hotel. The road flooded. He's taking a helicopter and should be here in 20 minutes. She ran a hand through her hair. "This is a mess." "It's going to work," Julian said with more confidence than he felt. "Where do you need me?" For the next 15 minutes, Julian worked alongside Olivia's team, following her directions without question. The dynamic between them had shifted. No power plays, no corporate posturing, just two people united by a common goal. "Systems are online," announced Rohan, Olivia's lead developer. "Running at 97% capacity." Olivia exhaled. "Let's do one final test run." The demonstration involved their combined technologies processing and responding to complex medical data in real time, potentially revolutionizing emergency response systems. As the test progressed, Julian watched Olivia's expression transform, from anxiety to wonder. "It's working better than in the lab," she whispered. Julian moved closer, studying the data streaming across the screens. "The response time is 30% faster than our projections." Their eyes met, mutual understanding passing between them. This wasn't just a successful business venture. It was something they'd created together, something that could save lives. "Liu." Moment was interrupted by the distant sound of helicopter blades. Hamilton Rochester had arrived. The demonstration proceeded flawlessly. Rochester, a silver-haired venture capitalist known for his brutal honesty, watched in uncharacteristic silence as their system processed complex scenarios with remarkable accuracy and speed. "Questions?" Julian asked when they finished. Rochester studied them both. "Just one. Why hasn't this gone to market already?" By evening, they had Rochester's commitment for double their requested investment. As the venture capitalist's helicopter departed, the Winters Blackwood team erupted in celebration. Julian watched Olivia accept congratulations from her team, struck by how effortlessly she shared credit. "We should talk," he said when they finally had a moment alone. "About next steps." Olivia nodded. "The partnership agreement. We'll need to formalize—" "Not here," Julian interrupted. "Dinner. Tonight." Something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps interest. "Is this business or pleasure, Mr. Blackwood?" "Does it have to be either?" he countered. The rain had subsided to a gentle mist as they drove to a small restaurant in the Berkeley Hills. Far from the Michelin-starred establishments Julian typically frequented, this place featured mismatched chairs, string lights, and a menu written daily on a chalkboard. "I used to come here as a graduate student," Olivia explained as they were seated at a corner table overlooking the bay. "Best risotto in the Bay Area." Julian studied her across the table, illuminated by candlelight. "You're not what I expected, Olivia Winters." "Disappointed?" A hint of challenge in her voice. "Intrigued," he admitted. "You've built something remarkable, and not just the technology." She traced the rim of her water glass. "It wasn't always easy. When I started Winters Innovation, I was 26 with big ideas and no connections. Doors weren't exactly flying. Open, yet here you are. Here we are," she corrected. "Today proved we make a good team." The conversation flowed easily as they shared plates of risotto and grilled vegetables. Julian found himself telling her about growing up in foster care, his determination to never be powerless again driving him to build his empire. Olivia spoke of losing her father to cancer during college, how watching overworked doctors miss critical data had inspired her AI research. "The storm's picking up again," the server warned as they finished their meal. "Roads to Oakland might flood overnight." Outside, the wind had intensified, bending trees and sending rain sideways. Julian's phone buzzed with a weather alert. Flash, Flood warnings throughout the Bay Area. I should get you home, he said. The drive to Olivia's apartment was tense, windshield wipers barely keeping pace with the deluge. Twice they had to turn around when streets became impassable. By the time they reached her neighborhood in Oakland, several roads were closed. You can't drive back to San Francisco in this, Olivia said, as they sat in his car, watching the storm rage. The bridge might close. Julian checked his phone. Already has. A moment of silence hung between them, possibilities unspoken. I have a guest room, she offered finally. It's that, or sleeping in your car. Her apartment surprised him. Not the minimalist design he'd expected, but a warm space filled with books, art, and unexpected touches. A baby grand piano occupied one corner, sheet music scattered across its top. You play? He asked, running, his fingers lightly over the keys. Badly, she smiled. But it relaxes me. As she showed him to the guest room, their hands brushed in the narrow hallway. Julian felt that same electric current from their first handshake, stronger now without business pretenses between them. Olivia, he said softly. She turned, suddenly, very close in the dimly lit corridor. Yes? Thank you. For today. For this. He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything, the partnership, the shelter from the storm, the glimpse into her private world. You're welcome, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Neither moved, the narrow space between them charged with possibility. Julian could see the pulse at her throat, the slight parting of her lips. For a man accustomed to taking what he wanted, he found himself paralyzed by the importance of this moment. It was Olivia who finally stepped back, breaking the spell. Good night, Julian. As he lay awake listening to the storm, Julian realized that for the first time in years his ambition had been eclipsed by something stronger, a connection he hadn't sought, but couldn't deny. The partnership that had begun as a business strategy had become something far more complicated, and he had no contingency plan for what was happening to his heart. Breaking Wall's morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains as Julian awoke, momentarily disoriented. The storm had passed, leaving behind a washed-clean sky and the subtle scent of coffee drifting through Olivia's apartment. He found her on the balcony, wrapped in an oversized cardigan, hair still damp from a shower. I wasn't sure how you take your coffee, she said, gesturing to a steaming mug on the small table. Black is fine. Julian joined her, conscious of the domestic intimacy of the moment. Sleep well? Surprisingly, yes. Olivia tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Something. About storms? Once I stop worrying about power outages and flooded servers, I find them peaceful. Julian sipped his coffee, noting with surprise that it was excellent, strong and complex like the woman who'd brewed it. Yesterday was unexpected. The demonstration, or everything after. Her directness hadn't diminished overnight. Both. Julian met her gaze. We work well together, Olivia, but I think we both know this is becoming more than a business partnership. A shadow crossed her face and she turned toward the view of Oakland rooftops. That's exactly what concerns me. Why? Because I've worked too hard to build what I have. Her voice hardened slightly. I've seen too many women in tech whose accomplishments get overshadowed the moment they become romantically involved with a powerful man. Julian felt a familiar defensiveness rise. Is that what you think of me? That I'd diminish what you've built? Not intentionally. Olivia faced him again. But perception matters in our world. Yesterday we created something revolutionary together. If we pursue whatever this is, she gestured between them. People will talk. They'll say I slept my way into a partnership with Blackwood Technologies. The accusation stung, partly because Julian recognized its potential truth. His own board members might question his judgment, suggest he'd been manipulated by attraction rather than business acumen. So we ignore this? He asked. I didn't say that. Olivia's expression softened. I'm saying it's complicated. Before Julian could respond, his phone buzzed with Rebecca's name on the screen. The real world intruding. I need to take this, he said. Rebecca's voice was tight with concern. Julian, where are you? The board called an emergency meeting. Anderson's trying to derail the Winters partnership. Julian tensed. On what grounds? He's claiming the prototype success was staged, says the partnership dilutes our brand and control. He's been gathering support all morning. Stall them. I'll be there in an hour. Julian ended the call, already calculating how quickly he could get to San Francisco. Trouble? Olivia asked, reading his expression. Board politics. Nothing I can't handle. He gathered his jacket. I need to go. Of course. Something in her tone made him pause. She'd withdrawn again, professional barriers sliding back into place. Olivia. It's fine, Julian. We both have companies to run. She walked him to the door. Thank you for your help yesterday. The formality felt wrong after the connection they'd shared. At the threshold, Julian turned. This isn't finished. This conversation. Us. A hint of vulnerability broke through her composed exterior. There is no us yet. That's the point. The drive to San Francisco gave Julian time to organize his thoughts. By the time he reached the Blackwood Technologies boardroom, he was ready for battle. Anderson, a longtime board member who'd opposed the partnership from the start, stood at the head of the table. Julian, glad you could join us. The older man's smile didn't reach his eyes. We were discussing concerns about the Winters arrangement. The partnership that secured us Hamilton Rochester's investment? The one that's already increased our stock price by 12%? Julian surveyed the room, noting who avoided his gaze. That arrangement? Rochester's easily impressed by shiny presentations, Anderson dismissed. What we're concerned about is your personal interest in this partnership. The implication hung in the air. Julian felt a cold anger settle in his chest. You think I'm compromised? We think, Anderson continued, that an acquisition would better serve our shareholders. Ms. Winters' company has valuable technology. We should own it, not partner with it. Julian leaned forward. Winters' innovation isn't selling. And if you try to force a hostile takeover, Rochester walks, along with their entire engineering team. The technology you want so badly, it leaves. With them, Rebecca spoke up. The prototype results were extraordinary. This partnership could revolutionize medical response systems globally. And make us billions, Julian added, but only if we respect what makes Winters' innovation unique, their approach, their culture, their leadership. The meeting dragged on for hours, Julian defending the partnership against increasingly desperate arguments. When he finally emerged, victorious, exhaustion had settled deep in his bones. He checked his phone, 3 missed calls from Olivia. He returned her call immediately. What happened? Her voice was tight. Board politics, like I said. It's handled. That's not what I heard. Olivia's tone was cool. My sources tell me your board wanted to terminate our partnership and pursue a hostile takeover. Julian closed his eyes. Of course she had sources. It was suggested I shut it down. Were you ever going to tell me? I just did. After I called you. The hurt beneath her anger was unmistakable. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Julian. The moment personal feelings enter the equation, business gets complicated. Olivia, I need time to think about the partnership, about everything. The line went dead. For a week, their communication remained strictly professional. Terse emails, formal project updates, necessary calls conducted with others present. Julian found himself uncharacteristically distracted, checking his phone too often, staring at her empty chair during joint meetings. Rebecca cornered him in his office after one particularly stilted video conference. Whatever you did, fix it. I didn't do anything, Julian protested. Exactly the problem, I'd wager. Rebecca folded her arms. For a brilliant businessman, you can be remarkably obtuse about people. That evening, Julian found himself driving to Oakland without a clear plan. The security guard at Winters Innovation recognized him, allowing him access despite the late hour. He found Olivia in her office, sleeves rolled up as she reviewed code on multiple monitors. She looked up, surprise quickly masked by professional neutrality. "Julian, I didn't expect you." "I should have told you about the board meeting immediately," he said without preamble. "I should have brought you in, made you part of the solution. I didn't, because I'm used to fighting my battles alone." Olivia's expression remained guarded. "That's not how partnerships work." "I know that now." Julian moved closer. "The truth is, I've never had a real partner in business or life. I've built walls so high that no one gets close enough to matter. And now I find myself terrified by how much you matter." The admission cost him, vulnerability never coming easily. "You were right this morning. It's complicated. People will talk. Our companies, our reputations are at stake." Olivia stood, closing some of the distance between them. "So why are you here?" "Because some things are worth the risk." Julian took a deep breath. "I can learn to be a better partner, to consult you, to share the burden. But I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel when I'm with you." Something shifted in Olivia's eyes. The wall she'd built beginning to crumble. "And what exactly do you feel, Julian Blackwood?" He closed the remaining distance between them. "Like I've spent my life building an empire, only to discover it's meaningless without someone to share it with. Someone who challenges me, who sees through the armor, who makes me want to be better." Olivia's breath caught. "People will say I'm sleeping with you to advance my company. Let them. We know the truth." "And what is the truth?" Julian reached out, finally brushing away that imaginary smudge on her cheek that had tempted him since yesterday. "That I'm falling in love with the most brilliant, stubborn, captivating woman I've ever met, and it terrifies me." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Olivia's professional composure finally cracked completely, vulnerability shining through. "I'm scared too," she admitted. "I've worked so hard to be taken seriously, to prove myself." "You have nothing left to prove, not to me, not to anyone." Olivia shook her head. "It's not that simple." "It can be," Julian insisted. "We build something together, professionally and personally, on equal footing." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Equal footing? The great Julian Blackwood, willing to share control? Only with you?" He smiled back, the tension between them transforming into something warmer. "And only because you've already proven you're my equal in every way that matters." This time, when the silence fell between them, neither pulled away. Julian leaned forward slowly, giving her time to retreat. Instead, Olivia closed the final distance, her lips meeting his with a certainty that melted the last of his reservations. When they finally parted, breathless, Olivia looked up at him with newfound clarity. "We'll need ground rules. Clear boundaries between personal and professional." Julian laughed softly. "Already negotiating terms?" "Always." She smiled, genuine and unguarded. "Take it or leave it, Blackwood." He pulled her closer. "I'll take it. And you, just as you are." Partners in every sense. 3 months later, the San Francisco Chronicle's business section featured a headline that would have once been unthinkable. "Blackwood Winters Partnership Revolutionizes Emergency Response Technology." Below it, a photo showed Julian and Olivia standing shoulder to shoulder at the product launch. Professional, but unmistakably united. Julian studied the article as his driver navigated morning traffic. The partnership had exceeded even their ambitious projections, with hospitals across the country implementing their AI system. More importantly, it had already saved lives. 17 documented cases where the technology had identified critical patterns that human medical staff had missed. His phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. "Have you seen the article?" He typed back, "Reading it now. They spelled your name correctly this time." "Progress. Dinner still on for tonight?" Julian smiled at the screen. "Wouldn't miss it. I have news." Their relationship had evolved with the same thoughtful intention they brought to their business partnership. Neither rushed, both protective of what they were building together. They'd established clear boundaries, no relationship discussions during business hours, separate offices maintained at both companies, and absolute transparency with their respective boards about their personal involvement. Not that it had prevented speculation. Industry blogs had initially buzzed with rumors about Olivia seducing her way into Blackwood Technologies' resources. Julian had been furious, ready to unleash his legal team, but Olivia had simply released their technology's performance data instead. The numbers spoke for themselves, silencing most critics. Julian arrived at Blackwood Technologies' headquarters to find Rebecca waiting in his office. "Rochester called," she said without preamble. "He wants to double his investment and bring in partners from the healthcare sector. Send the proposal to legal and copy Olivia's team," Julian replied, settling behind his desk. "And the other matter?" Rebecca smiled knowingly. "Everything's arranged for tonight. The restaurant is confirmed, private dining room, her favorite, flowers. Though I still think you're being unnecessarily dramatic about all this." Noted and ignored. Julian checked his calendar. "Is Daniel back from Washington?" "Landed this morning. The Senate committee was impressed with our privacy protocols. Looks like we'll avoid the regulatory issues that plagued our competitors." Another result of Olivia's influence. Her insistence on ethical AI development had initially seemed like an unnecessary constraint to Julian. Now, it had positioned them advantageously as legislation caught up with technology. The day passed in a blur of meetings and conference calls. By evening, Julian found himself unusually nervous as he arrived at Seaview, the upscale restaurant where he'd made reservations. The maitre d' escorted him to the private dining room overlooking the bay, where sunset painted the water in shades of gold and crimson. "Ms. Winters called to say she's running 10 minutes late," the maitre d' informed him. "May I bring you a drink while you wait?" Julian checked his watch. "McAllen, neat." When Olivia arrived, she was slightly breathless, cheeks flushed from hurrying. She wore a simple emerald dress that brought out the amber in her eyes, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Sorry," she said, kissing him briefly. "Crisis with the London installation. All sorted now." Julian found himself momentarily speechless, still struck sometimes by the simple fact of her presence in his life. "What?" she asked, noticing his expression. "Nothing," he recovered. "You're beautiful." Olivia rolled her eyes, but her smile was pleased. "Charmer. Now what's this news you've been hinting at all day?" "After dinner," Julian insisted. "Tell me about London." They fell into easy conversation, discussing work developments and personal anecdotes with the comfortable rhythm they'd established. Olivia described her morning jog being interrupted by a family of raccoons. Julian recounted Daniel's disastrous attempt to impress a senator with his limited French. As they finished their main course, Olivia fixed him with a penetrating look. "All right, enough stalling. What's this big news?" Julian set down his fork. "I've been thinking about the future. Our future." "That sounds ominous," she teased. "Quite the opposite." He reached across the table for her hand. "The partnership has succeeded beyond our expectations. Both companies are thriving. Rochester's additional investment will fuel expansion into international markets." "All true," Olivia said carefully. "Though I suspect this isn't about quarterly projections." Julian smiled. Perceptive as always. "No, this is about something I've realized over these past months. Working with you, being with you. It's changed me, Olivia. For the better." Her expression softened. "It's changed me too. Before you, success meant control, power, building something no one could take from me." Julian's thumb traced circles on her palm. "Now I understand that true success is finding someone who makes you want to be better, who challenges you to grow rather than simply accumulate." Olivia's eyes widened slightly as understanding dawned. "Julian," he continued, suddenly certain, "I've spent my life believing vulnerability was weakness. You've shown me it's actually courage." He reached into his pocket, withdrew a small velvet box. "Which is why I'm finding the courage to ask if you'll marry me." The ring inside was a perfect expression of Olivia, an emerald surrounded by smaller diamonds, elegant without being ostentatious. Olivia stared at the ring, then at Julian, her composure momentarily shattered. "This is unexpected, is it?" Julian asked softly. "Haven't we been moving toward this since that first night at the gala?" A complex mix of emotions played across her face. "Julian, I love you, but marriage, that changes everything, personally and professionally. It doesn't have to, but it will," she insisted. "Winter's innovation is just gaining the recognition it deserves. If I become Olivia Blackwood, people will see me differently." Julian hadn't considered this angle. "Keep your name professionally. It's not that simple." Olivia withdrew her hand. "What about our companies? Would we merge them? Keep them separate? What happens if we disagree on strategy?" "We'd figure it out," Julian said, frustration creeping into his voice. "Together." Olivia stood abruptly. "I need some air." Julian watched her walk onto the private terrace, the ring box still open on the table between them. This wasn't how he had envisioned the evening unfolding. After a moment, he followed her outside. She stood at the railing, arms wrapped around herself despite the mild evening. Julian approached cautiously. "I didn't mean to upset you," he said. Olivia turned, her expression troubled. "You didn't. I upset myself." She sighed. "Do you remember what you said the first time you came to my office? Business is business. Sentimentality." "And I interrupted you." "Because sentimentality is precisely what makes your AI different," Julian finished. "I remember. I believed that then. I still do." She met his gaze. "But I also believe in protecting what I've built. My company is part of my identity, Julian. I can't risk losing it or myself even for you." Understanding dawned. "You think I'm asking you to give something up, aren't you?" "Eventually, something would have to give." Julian considered her words carefully. She wasn't wrong. Marriage would complicate their carefully balanced professional relationship. Yet something deeper was at stake. "What if," he said slowly, "instead of either of us giving something up, we created something new together? Not a merger of our companies, but a foundation." Olivia tilted her head. Curiosity piqued. "What kind of foundation?" "One that furthers the work we've started with emergency response systems. That brings our technology to communities that couldn't otherwise afford it." Julian moved closer. "We've proven we can make money together, Olivia. What if we also proved we could make a difference?" A smile began to form on her lips. "A foundation independent of both companies?" "Completely. Something that's ours, not Blackwood's or Winter's." Julian took her hands. "I'm not asking you to sacrifice your identity or your company. I'm asking if you'll build a life with me where we're partners in every sense. Business, philanthropy, family." "Family?" Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Eventually," Julian amended. "If you want." She studied him, the doubt in her eyes gradually giving way to something warmer. "You've really thought about this?" "I've thought about little else." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I love you, Olivia Winters. Your brilliance, your compassion, your stubbornness, all of it. I don't want to change you, I want to build with you." Olivia's smile widened. "A foundation is a good start." "Is that a yes?" "It's a I need to see the ring again," she teased. Julian led her back inside, retrieved the box and properly dropped to one knee. "Olivia Winters, will you marry me? Keeping your name professionally, maintaining your company's independence and launching a joint foundation to bring our technology to those who need it most?" Olivia laughed, tears glistening in her eyes. "That's quite the proposal. I'm nothing if not thorough." "Yes," she said simply, extending her hand. "Yes to all of it." As Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, he marveled at how much had changed since that first night at the gala. He'd mistaken her for someone who would serve him, never imagining she would instead be the one to save him. From his isolation, his narrow definition of success, his fear of letting anyone truly know him. 6 months later, they stood together on a platform in Oakland as Mayor Jacqueline Porter cut the ribbon on the first Blackwood Winters Community Innovation Center. The former warehouse had been transformed into a technology training facility for underserved youth, with additional spaces dedicated to healthcare technology development and emergency response training. This center represents our commitment to ensuring technology serves everyone, not just those who can afford it. Olivia addressed the crowd, her hand naturally finding Julian's beside her. Later, as they walked through the facility, Julian watched local students exploring the computer labs with wide-eyed wonder. "We did good," he said quietly. Olivia leaned against him, her wedding ring catching the light. "We're just getting started." A young girl approached them shyly, tablet clutched to her chest. "Ms. Winters, I read about your AI system. I want to build something like that someday." Olivia knelt to meet the girl's eyes. "What's your name?" "Elena." "Well, Elena, I think you absolutely can. Would you like to show me what you're working on?" As Olivia followed the girl to a workstation, Julian watched with a fullness in his heart he'd never experienced before. His phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca, something about quarterly projections exceeding expectations. But for once, business could wait. He'd spent his life building an empire of glass and steel, never realizing what he truly wanted was this. A partnership built on respect and love, work that mattered beyond profit margins, and the knowledge that his legacy would be measured not in dollars, but in lives changed. Julian Blackwood, who once mistook a CEO for his chauffeur, had finally learned the most important lesson of all. True power wasn't found in what you controlled, but in what you created with someone who saw your highest potential and challenged you to reach it. And as he watched his wife mentor a future innovator, Julian knew with absolute certainty that this, not his company, not his wealth, was his greatest success story.